Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and board game aficionado. Welcome to RogueWatson Reviews, my video review series where I take a look at tabletop games. These videos are divided into 3 parts. First, I'll introduce the game, take a look at the components, briefly explain how it plays. Second, I'll run through a sample turn or round of the game, and finally, I'll list my pros and cons, and provide my final thoughts. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shout out to my platinum patrons Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, and Charles. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos David Vicente Gilberto, Sean aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, Aukshi, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. This video we're going to be taking a look at Game of Thrones, Hand of the King. Hand of the King is another small box Game of Thrones card game for 2 to 4 players. It was designed by Bruno Cathala and published by Fantasy Flight Games in 2016. Hand of the King does not use any art or character likeness from the HBO series, but does feature all of the characters in a much more cartoony art style in each of the cards. Players take turns moving Varys around a 6x6 grid of cards, scooping up characters and earning house banners. It's a simple, fast-playing collection game with a surprising amount of fun strategy and gameplay. Let's see what's in the box. Alright, so what is included in the box for a Game of Thrones, Hand of the King? A little fold-out manual there. We have 7 house banner tokens, which you use to track how much of each card that you have collected and are used for winning the game. You also get these 3-eyed raven tokens, which are basically useless, and I will explain to that further along in this video. 14 companion cards, which represent characters from the series, famous characters of course, and 36 character cards which actually serve as the game board. Because in order to play the game, you shuffle these cards and then you deal them out, creating a little grid. I'll create a kind of miniature version right here. It ends up being a 6x6 grid, and they represent 7 different major houses of Westeros, although I'd make an argument that I don't think Tully is a major house compared to some of the others, but you've got the Greyjoys, Baratheons, Starks, Lannisters, so on and so forth. And it's somewhere Mr. Varys, the manipulative eunuch, gets placed in this grid of 6x6 cards. And then every turn, a player is going to take Varys, they're going to declare a house, and they're going to move him in one of the cardinal directions, and then scooping up all of the characters from that house. It is a set collection game. Whenever you have the most number of any one character, then you take that house faction's token, and the winner of the game has the most faction tokens by the end of the game. The game ends when Varys can no longer legally move because he's gotten stuck somewhere and can't move in any direction or pick up any people, which is normally when you've got most of the people depleted. The only other extra rule beyond just moving Varys around and collecting cards is that whenever somebody collects the final house card from a certain faction, so for example on this map, if Robert Baratheon was the last Baratheon player that was taken, and there's a certain amount of characters in each faction, then that player would then get to choose one of the companion cards. There are 6 that are set out at the start of a game. You can pick one, and then they have various abilities. For example, Hodor can take Bran Stark from King's Landing or any play area. They are highly thematic. They all have to do with kind of what they're all about, or even specific things that they can do in the show. Melisandre lets you take an immediate turn. Not exactly that indicative, but Khal Drogo, for example, can take Daenerys from either King's Landing, which is the board, or another player, and then kills Viserys, again, from any other player or from King's Landing. So there's a cool way that you can manipulate the board, while at the same time driving home the thematic different events and storytelling beats that the actual series, both the book and the show, do throughout the story. So I think that's a really, really neat addition to have in there, and it makes this game a lot more interesting and thematic beyond just moving Varys around and collecting cards, which is still actually pretty fun. So let's go over a sample round or turn for the game. Alright, so this is what the quote-unquote board looks like. It's actually pretty impressive when you deal out all the cards like that, and you also get to see a lot of the characters that are actually dead before the series starts, such as Lyanna Stark, and Rhaegar Targaryen. Quite a number of characters here that are used, and not every faction has the same amount of cards. It's a very important point to make. The Starks, you can see in the lower right corner, have 8 cards amongst the Stark cards, so it means it's more difficult to collect all of the Stark cards compared to House Tyrell, which only has 3 cards. So it's easier to get their final character bonus in order to pick one of these character cards on their side, as well as negate the fact that once they are chosen, nobody else can really steal this token from you unless you have a character card that lets you manipulate those certain characters. And this kind of depends, and that adds a lot of replayability depending on which character cards get chosen. For the sake of referencing the players, because the players aren't playing certain colors or anything else on the board and they're all using Varys, we are having level 1 player 1, Jon Snow, player 2, Ramsay, and player 3 is the Hound, Sandor Clegane. So, player 1, you have to pick Varys, move him in one of the 4 directions to collect certain houses. I think that we can say we're going to go Greyjoy to the left, which means we can move him all the way to the left and pick up both Greyjoy cards when we do that. Not always you want to get multiples, you always want to be able to think ahead to what your opponents are doing, but it seems to be a good thing early on, which means Jon gets to get the Greyjoy token. Next, Ramsay can either go, only has 2 options, towards the right and towards the top. You can see House Tully only has 2 people, so getting a Tully card would be pretty dang good right now, although then you set up the next person. You see, if I went up and took this Tully, the next person could then go to the right and grab that Tully card, and then, because they have the most and they were the most recent to get it, I mean, technically they're tied, but the tying player gets to take it from the person who got it earlier, so it's always good to tie. And because there's no more Tully cards after that, not only would they get to select a companion card, but they would then earn this token, and it'd be really hard for anybody to take it from them. So that is not a good idea. So you can see how this strategy works out, where you have to kind of look ahead and see what other players are doing and where Varys ends up versus the other players. Same thing with Tyrell here. There's only 3 Tyrell, so I could grab one, but then somebody else will be able to grab that one. That still leaves this 3rd one on the board, but it becomes a little less useful. So instead, we're going to say, Stark and go all the way to the top. Hopefully I can do this without bumping the camera. And Ramsay has 2 Starks and gains the Stark token. Sandor Clegane, the Hound, could also stay Stark and go to the right and then claim the Stark token. That's probably not a bad move. Or could do it for Lannister as well. Sandor's kind of a jerk. He's just also going to say Stark. Gives him Bran and Arya right there. And now because he tied, but he picked last, then he actually gets to steal the Stark token from Ramsay. And then it goes back to Jon. We can go ahead and go through one more round because it's a pretty quick one. I kind of want to get to where we can at least select a companion card, but that could be quite a number of turns in order to get there. So it's Jon's turn again. He could select more Greyjoys just to bolster his token with the Greyjoys or not. He has 3 different options he can go in. But if you look here, we go Targaryen, we can get 3 cards. So we're going to do that. We're going to go Targaryen and pick up Aerys, Aegon, and Daenerys. All 3 of those right down there, which gives us the Targaryen house token and a pretty good lead on the Targaryens as well. Ramsay, what are you going to do? You've got no real good options for multiple people here. You can finally go in 4 directions with Varys. I think they are going to try and get a lock on the Tyrells. Lyanna Tyrell, very different art compared to the show. But nobody else has a Tyrell, so it gives you the Tyrell token. Sandor Clegane, the Hound, is going to go Baratheon and grab these 2, giving him the Baratheon token. I think at this point, almost everybody's got 2, except Ramsay only has the 1 Tyrell. If we go to Jon, Jon could say Baratheon would be good, because then you just tied Baratheon. Let's do that. And I believe these are the last 2 Baratheons, because the Hound just selected 2. There are 4 total, and Jon just got the last 2. So not only does he steal the Baratheon token from the Hound, but he gets to select one of these 6 character cards, because he got the last character from that faction. And there are different options. We can use Ilan Payne to kill Eddard Stark anywhere on the map or in King's Landing, which means we could kill Ramsay's Eddard Stark, although it doesn't really help us very much. Brienne lets us rescue Sansa as a free card. Peter Baelish lets us draw 2 cards, play 1 and discard the other for companions. Loras, we can take Renly. Baratheon, I don't think we need that. We already have Renly. Melisandre lets us immediately take another turn. And Bronn lets us take Tyrion Lannister. None of these are incredibly awesome for us. Taking another turn could be useful, but we really can't do much with it. We could grab the Tully, but then, like I said, somebody would immediately grab the other Tully card. So I think we are going to... We could either probably take Sansa or Tyrion. I think we are going to just take Tyrion. So we're going to take the Bronn companion card, which just says, hey, you can take Tyrion Lannister no matter where he is, and put him in there. Nobody else has a Lannister, so that also earns John a Lannister card. Lannister token. Ramsay. We're going to go through 3 rounds total, aren't we? Ramsay Snow is... I guess he becomes a Bolton later on, doesn't he? You are going to go for... None of these options are very good for you, Ramsay. Because, again, that Tully is a trap. Either of these Tullys is kind of an interesting trap, I feel like. They are really screwed. They're going to go... I'm going to go Greyjoy and just pick up this. Doesn't give them anything because somebody else already has 2 Greyjoys. They're just trying to be strategic and move it over. Sandor Clegane, a.k.a. the Hound. Is that the last Targaryen? No, there's 2 Targaryens right there. Still 4 Stark. You always want to look and see and get those companion cards because they are quite useful. He's going to go down and get Viserys as a Targaryen, which again doesn't get you the token, but then puts you up hopefully in a good spot for a future turn. And now whoever gets that Rhaegar Targaryen will activate the companion card. So you can see here we're thinking ahead and knowing what your opponents are going to do. There's actually a surprising amount of strategy and depth in what is demonstrably a very simple, easy to learn card game. Everybody just moving Varys around, but I was really impressed with the amount of strategical depth that is here, and I love the companion cards and how well they use the theme. All right, let's go over my pros, cons, and final thoughts for Hand of the King. Pro, it's easy to teach and play. Not all Game of Thrones games have to be complex geopolitical war games, although a few of them actually are, but as a set collection game, it's very easy to play with family and even older kids, although probably shouldn't show your kids the actual TV show. Pro, the companion cards help sell the theme and give it a proper Game of Thrones flavor, with most of their abilities ripped straight out of the books and TV series, whether it's Ilan Payne killing Ned Stark, Brienne rescuing Sansa, or Jon Snow's ability to join different houses. Con, the cartoon art just doesn't match the series. Adapting all of these now quite famous characters into a Saturday morning cartoon style is an interesting take, but ultimately feels too strange and bizarre for Game of Thrones. Con, the Three-Eyed Raven variant is silly and dumb. You can play with an optional rule to not allow any table talk unless a player character discards their Three-Eyed Raven token, in which case they can then get up to leave and converse with either an opponent or a teammate to plan out their actions in secret. It's completely bizarre. This level of seriousness doesn't at all fit with the lighthearted gameplay. Thankfully, it's easily ignored. Final verdict. If you can look past the strange artistic choice, Hand of the King packs a fun, lightly thematic, easy-to-play Game of Thrones card game into a tiny box. Thank you everyone for watching this video review. You can enjoy more videos, reviews, and live plays of board games, video games, and tabletop RPGs here on my YouTube channel, as well as at my website at RogueWatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/RogueWatson. Thank you.